Honest opinions of Andy Robertson as ever. Jamie, how worrying is it? Not just tonight, but on the back of Fulham first weekend and dropping points as well at the first home game against Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you could almost not dismiss the first two games, but, you know, Fulham, a newly promoted team, Liverpool win at the races. They've done really well against City the week before. Liverpool played well against Palace. They were unlucky, went down to 10 men, still dominated the game with 10 men. It was one of those games that they should have probably won. Today is a big worry. Not the result. You can come to Manchester United and lose. It's a tough place to come. But it was the manner of the way they started the game, a derby game. You know, away, whether it's Goodison or Old Trafford, you always know there's going to be a little bit of need. There's an extra bit on it. Manchester United, it was obvious how they were going to start the game. They had to start the first 15, 20 minutes like their lives depended on it and get this crowd involved. And they did. And it was like Liverpool weren't ready. Now, at the moment, when you're watching Liverpool, obviously it was the first time they've lost in about 20 league games. So
first time in 2022, unbelievable.
Yeah. But there is a little pattern, even going back to Fulham, even like the Champions League final, where a lot of teams are going, well, OK, we're not going to play out from the back, so we'll let you press us. And when you get the ball, we're going to drop off, and we'll try and hit you on the counter-attack. So Liverpool find it very difficult to break teams down when everyone's in front of them. And every time Liverpool play a game of football, and I know Liverpool have been amazing, and people say it's the thing you've got to accept, that someone runs through on the goal every time. But I'm a centre-back, and I didn't play on the halfway line the way, you know, teams do now. But when someone runs through at your goal every single game, something can't be right. I've never thought it was right. It doesn't happen to Man City. And so every time Liverpool play a game of football, they get hit on the counter-attack and someone runs through on goal. And it's just whether Alisson can save it or not. Tonight he couldn't. So there's 3 or 4 things how Liverpool play and how teams are now doing the opposite to try and negate them, to stop them. And Liverpool are finding it really difficult at the moment.
I think they've got enough credit in the bank, this group of players and this manager. And the fact they've got 6 players missing: Matip, Konate, Keita, Thiago, Nunez and Jota. I think they've got enough credit in the bank for us to go easy on them, because look, that game you can lose in any season. It can happen. I'm surprised that Manchester United have done what they've done tonight. You know, they should have beaten Crystal Palace on Monday. They were unlucky, and then Fulham got caught them out on the first game. The problem is, because of the standards that Manchester City have set and Liverpool have set over this last few years, you end up thinking it's a real worry because of the bigger picture. Ordinarily, in any normal decade, that wouldn't be a sort of, you know, picking up a couple of points in your first 3, you'd recover from it. But City, where they are, obviously is a problem for Liverpool in the sense of winning the title, because they're a few points behind. But I think it'll be harsh. Look, I wouldn't be worried if I was Liverpool, because they've got lots of players to come back.
Roy?
I'd be worried if I was Klopp. What I've seen tonight, I think defensively very, very casual. Going back to the Fulham game, Van Dijk, look at the game of Fulham, even the other night against Palace, I thought he could have done better. Tonight, we've made the point about he's arguing with James Milner. I know that can happen, but it just seemed a bit more than that. It just seemed a bit more than the normal falling out with a player.
But how many times did we start in a season a bit scruffy, a little bit sloppy?
Man City and these teams weren't around then.
I know, but still, you just like, I just think you got. I think cut them a bit of slack. They've had an unbelievable few years. They get to a Champions League final last season.
Oh, we're not.
It's like,
we're not hammering them.
I wouldn't be worried about Liverpool.
But when you set such high standards, and you start the season like that, then again you're going to be
points in
criticised.
10 games last season. That's points. They dropped points in 10 games last season. They've done it in the first 3 days.
It's the first game they've lost in about, I don't know, it feels like an absolute age. It's going to happen. This is the type of place, to be fair, where you would lose a game, because this is the type of ground that can just eat you up if you're not right.
Gary, I totally agree with what you're saying. I find it very difficult. How can you be critical? They've done so much. They're amazing. It's only 3 games into a season. It wasn't losing here. It was the manner and the way they didn't start the game. And it's happened so often now, sort of in the last sort of 10 games. I think it's 7 games in a row they conceded the first goal. That's not a freak. That's a pattern that you need to change very quickly.
And even the 2 draws. The first 2 games, you might say draws. Draws. You can't see Man City drawing a home to Palace, maybe, possibly, or going to Fulham. I just think you can't afford them that sloppy defending, particularly from your best defenders. Van Dijk, he's been really off it.
One thing I would say about Van Dijk is that there was a time maybe last season, certainly before his injury, you wouldn't even see players taking Van Dijk on. They'd refuse it. They'd just pass it. They are now starting to think, oh, I've got a chance here, might just have a go at him. So he's got to sort that out. But I think those players will kick themselves into gear in the next week or 2.